orden, gracias a ustedes.
Gracias, te vemos pronto. Bueno, a continuación, para cerrar con broche de oro este festival, sabemos que ha sido largo, agradecemos mucho a todos que nos sigan acompañando. Tenemos nuestra última presentación del día y voy a presentarla en inglés para aquellos que están en español si quieren aprender su traducción simultánea. So welcome Jill Tidman. Our next guest and final speaker of the festival is Jill Tidman, who will share the story of how the Raise the River Coalition, la Alianza Revive el Río, came together, and how a story told with passion and purpose can lead to great impacts. Jill is the executive director of the Redford Center, an independent nonprofit organization founded in 2005 by Robert Redford and his son James Redford, who unfortunately is no longer with us. Jill has worked with the organization since its founding and took the helm in 2012 to lead the vision, strategy, and operations in service of advancing environmental solutions through the power of stories that move people to act. She has produced 3 award-winning feature documentaries and impact campaigns, including the documentary film Watershed, and draws on the experience as a writer, filmmaker, and activist, and her passion for sustainability and environmental justice to create a new way forward to impactful environmental films. With over 25 years of experience as an activist and storyteller, Jill has raised millions of dollars for environmentally engaged artists and film projects that serve as powerful education, communication, and activation tools. Jill is joining conversation today by Lynn Burstow, who is Raise the River's communication manager and who also helped put together a big chunk of this festival. Thank you very much, Lynn. And she's also part of the Redford Center team. So welcome, Jill, and welcome, Lynn. The camera and microphones are all yours.
Thank you, and welcome, Jill.
Thank you. It's so lovely to be here with all of you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we've had such a great day so far, and I think everybody is really seeing how great the energy is to have so many organizations come together and work on behalf of the Colorado River and its delta. And what a lot of people may not know is what a big part of this coming together the Redford Center had. So I'd love it, Jill, if you could just kind of start us off and first talk a little bit about the Redford Center, its mission, and how you see documentary filmmaking.
Sure. Thank you, Lynn. And I know a wonderful introduction to the organization was just made. So I think I'll try to just say it a little bit differently. Our mandate, we're an environmental organization, and the tool that we use to do our work is film. So we produce film, we invest in film, we support filmmakers that care about the issues and that have impact goals, impact plans, and visions for how their work can make a difference in the world. And as a result, we take a very broad definition of the word environment. We look at stories that can really connect issues and movements, stories that can empower community organizing, that can help people and communities heal from some of the environmental justice we know is happening, stories that highlight progress on the ground, innovation, and ultimately leave people feeling encouraged about the future and hopefully inspired to do something about the issues of the film or a similar issue that they're facing in their life. And that is our mission, is to really invest in and produce these storytelling tools for the movement at large, and as a way to help grow the movement as well and bring more people in through the resonance that we know films can create.
And Watershed was one of the original documentaries that Redford Center produced, and it's about the Colorado River and about the plight to the Delta. How did the Redford Center come to take on this topic, and what was the kind of the origin story of getting involved with this theme?
Yes, well, so as was mentioned, this is Robert Redford and his son James's organization that was founded almost 20 years ago now. And I often talk about it as an evolution of the family's environmental commitment and legacy. For many more than just the last 20 years, they've been involved and vocal and active and fighting the good fight, as we say, since the late 70s. Bob Redford has been in this work. They've also been very close to the Colorado River personally. And at, gosh, I guess it was 2009, maybe, we started a conversation about making a film that really looks at issues of water in the West, and brought together, as we often do, a group of stakeholders from all different sides of the issue to have a discussion around what does this work need in terms of a storytelling tool? What are the messages that would be helpful? What are the opportunities for action? And the biggest, the greatest threats to progress. So we spent 3 days at the magical Sundance Resort and listening and learning, and really kind of at the end of it started to understand the common ground in the room was sort of even many steps back from what we had expected, which was this idea that most people don't even know where their water comes from anymore. And so kind of starting from the beginning at this concept of a watershed, and what is a watershed, and all the different life forms that depend on it and that it feeds. And so from there, we determined that the best opportunity to tell a story about a watershed was to select a watershed that was very close to the family, that had a lot of storytelling opportunity and a long history. And so the Colorado River became the subject of the film, and the goal of the film was to really inspire people to think differently about the river as a resource, and to understand and expose some of the threats to the health of the river and the communities, human and animal and other, that depend on the river for survival. So it takes a look at 7 different community members who are dependent upon the river for their water, and how they are thinking about it and interacting with the water in what I think of as a really collaborative way. So we have, for example, we have a bike messenger in Los Angeles who talks about the importance of taking care of your own local environment, your backyard community. We have a farmer from Colorado whose goal in his work is to improve the water resource that he uses and interacts with. We have a fly fisherman who talks about the opportunity to educate people and to spend time on the river, and what that does for him spiritually and personally. We have the Navajo community member who really exposes the challenges for her community that are still hauling water and that revere the resource. As we know, water is life, and that message comes through Glowgene. And then the character or film subject that really inspired the impact goal for this project is a woman named Edith Santiago, who worked at the time at the Sonoran Institute restoring the Colorado River Delta ecosystem. And it was through a conversation with Edith that we really got to understand the opportunity to rehabilitate the Delta, what it would take, and how many people are already working on it, and the plans that were in place, and the vision that was in place to do that rewilding work. And so we made the decision at the time that when we were complete with the film, that we would direct the attention that people have to take action toward the Delta restoration work.
Before we go further, I'm just thinking that a lot of people may not be familiar with Watershed. So I'd like to ask if we can just show the trailer so people can get a glimpse of what kind of stories were being told at that time. Ketsa, can you show the trailer, please, for the Watershed?
When I was a kid, I used to hear this saying all the time. It goes, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting.
The Colorado River and the tributaries that make up her basin define the American West.
In Native American traditions, people consider this the heart of the universe. Water in the West is our most valuable resource.
It's like 250 miles away where we get our water from. I mean, even the water commutes to LA, come on.
Water, which is so precious, doesn't come like it used to.
This whole notion of the American dream, there really isn't water conservation or any type of environmental anything.
With the Colorado River no longer reaching her delta and greater demand looming, perhaps it's time to embrace a new water ethic.
For me, I could say water is love.
One of the conditions is that we were going to do it differently, or we weren't going to do it at all. The way we considered our water consumption is to improve upon the resource that's delivered to us.
That's where we should be putting our attention, into our own natural landscape right here.
All your problems, they disappear when you're out here on the water. It renews you.
It's time that the river is famous not for the dams, but because the water is flowing all the way to the Gulf of California. That would be great.
The question remains, can restoring a mighty river's connection to the sea open new frontiers of conservation and cooperation?
There's beginning to be hope.
I still get so moved when I see that, especially with all the work being done. And Edith Santiago is a part of that. So Jill, so take us along this journey then. After meeting with Edith and understanding the entities that were already working on trying to help solve this problem, what was the next step, and how did you kind of work to convene the various organizations that were really already on the ground and working on behalf of the Colorado River Delta?
Sure. Well, so as we do, and many filmmakers who have impact plans do, as you're making the film, you get to know the organizations and the individuals and the communities that are solving the problem or challenge, and you get to know kind of where the opportunities for change are. And so through the filmmaking, we got introduced to many of the people you've probably heard from this morning. So we got to know the work of the Sonoran Institute and Pro Natura Noreste, and the Nature Conservancy's role in it. And at the time, the Environmental Defense Fund was active, and the National Fish and Wildlife Federation. I think those were the other organizations that were really active in this work. And it was by the time the film was done, it was 2011, 2012. And so there was also at that moment in time, the negotiations for Minute 319 were underway. And so as we started learning about what that would mean, which is that would put a fundraising burden on the coalition of nonprofits that were negotiating that agreement, that's became for us a question: is can we direct the impact campaign around this film to support the fundraising efforts of of this group of organizations working? And what about awareness raising and education? And which campaign, which is more important, or is it important to do both? And so we felt the impulse to not only bring the organizations together to have that conversation, how do we want to direct the momentum from this film? We were just getting ready to go on tour with it, and our first work there was to go to the 7 largest Colorado water using cities to sort of go on a road show with the film. And so we brought these stakeholders to the Sundance Mountain Resort, again, the same place where we brought all of the stakeholders initially to ask the question, what kind of a film tool does the movement need? And we brought also a PR firm, so Butler, Stern, and Shine, Butler, Stern, Shine and Partners. BSSP is their acronym. They offered to come and at pro bono to help us think about not only, is it fundraising, is it education, is it both? But how do we tell a unified story? How do all these organizations that have role here and that have been working on this issue, tell a shared narrative so that there's more power in the story that gets out there and the opportunity for public engagement on the issue. And so we spent 2 or 3 days together having this conversation, getting the creative wheels turning of this PR kind of agency that came to be with us. And at the end of it, we came away with the name, the brand name, Raise the River, and a commitment to do both fundraising and education and awareness on the issue as part of the campaign. And so for a film to have that much momentum and that much support, both from an ad agency like that and also these 5 incredible movement organizations, we were really there just to serve the bigger goal. As part of that work, we were invited in to be, the storytelling partner for the effort, and that is the work that you, Lynn, have been leading now since 2014, I think, is when we first started working with you, right around the Pulse Flow. So the Pulse Flow came, the agreement was signed, I think, either the day we got together or the weekend while we were together at Sundance. So it was sort of this perfect moment for us to know that this big fundraising goal was real, this big opportunity for restoration was real, and it just set us all on course.
And it's a story. I mean, the story is a big part of what the Redford Center does. And when you're doing a documentary, I mean, you have to be engaging in something. And so how did you view, or how did you get all these different organizations to come in alignment with one story? And what is that story that speaks to you?
Yeah, well, these groups were working together already. I feel like we got to know everybody, got to know how much collaboration was already happening, and really saw the opportunity to bring that kind of a unifying narrative strategy to bear, which is often, a game changer, I would say, for these types of campaigns. And so it was more just really understanding who was doing this hard work on the ground and who was involved in the Minute 319 negotiation and sort of part of the fundraising work and the on the ground restoration work. So we kind of came in probably at the latest to the group. And sorry, what was your other question?
Well, and then at that time, one of the aspects of Minute 319 was providing this amount of water that would kind of reflood the delta, the pulse flow. So that was a pretty monumental achievement. And tell us a little bit about the pulse flow itself. And you were there.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I had the privilege of being in the Delta now 3 different times and watching this incredible growth and restoration work and rewilding happening. And at that time, there was a big kind of PR element to the pulse flow. So it was really opportunity to do some storytelling. It was going to be the first time that the water had reached its end, hopefully. That was the hope before the pulse happened, since the 60s, I think, in a consistent way. And so it was a really big moment. And what's, I would say, unique about the way the Redford Center approaches storytelling is that we are really always going for that hopeful narrative. And so we collectively really got behind this vision that if we can bring this river back to its natural end, then no place is without hope, right? Like, this is such a hopeful narrative and opportunity for the public to feel encouraged about the future. And so that was really the goal, was this, I think even our tagline was reconnect the Colorado River at the time. And I think what we learned through the pulse flow, which, it was like to watch a family, particularly the young people in the river for the first time, understanding why there was a bridge over what used to just be dry land, and watching the animals, the horses, I remember really vividly in the water. It was just everything kind of came to life. And for me, it was a moment of resonance, this sort of water is life mantra meant something totally different in that moment. And because I saw it, I saw the life that was kind of a result of this pulse flow of water. And I know that we learned through that effort that the approach was, instead of the total reconnection, that the approach was really to find restoration sites and do these kind of connective create a corridor for wildlife and for the water that was connected, and really recreate these habitats versus, trying to get the water all the way down. So sort of utilizing the water to create these spaces in the Delta that had become dry. And so that felt really profound to me. But you and your colleagues know a lot more about that, the actual science and the strategy now. But that was a moment I will never forget.
I want to just interrupt right here and just and show a clip from Renewal, which it's interesting because Watershed came out in 2012, and it was really the story of the plight of the river. And then all the work that was done subsequent to that with the impact campaign and all the organizations coming together and the fundraising and the signing of Minute 319. And then we have the pulse flow. So Redford Center came back and supported, with Robert Redford narrating again, it's a 14-minute film that we have on our YouTube channel, which we can share the link to. But I just want to give everyone a chance to see the hopefulness that comes out of that. Ketsa, can you show the Renewal clip, please? And this is only a couple minutes out of the entire summary, but I think it speaks to exactly what you were talking about, Jill, and shares a little bit of the feeling that was there of hopefulness. Ketsa? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Humans can certainly harm, but humans can also help. Inspired by nature's resilience and the knowledge that a small amount of water can rekindle life, a binational restoration effort in the Delta was launched in the 1990s. The work of nonprofit groups, government agencies, community leaders, and others helped inspire an historic agreement in 2012 between the governments of Mexico and the United States. Called Minute 319, the U.S. and Mexico agreed that working together to save the Delta with more regular water flows was an important priority.
We, as citizens of the Colorado River watershed, decided that this is what we wanted to do, and we made it happen.
In March 2014, the time for action had come. Beginning at the Morelos Dam, located on the U.S.-Mexico border, an unprecedented surge of water called a pulse flow began its historic journey into the Delta, an event intended to mimic the natural spring flooding that used to take place annually in this region. As the gates of the dam opened, U.S. and Mexican officials celebrated the beginning of this unique experiment. Years of work had cemented a new binational partnership, a model of cooperation for all the world to see.
We were there to witness, and when they opened the gates and the river was alive, and it's a complete excitement to everybody.
Watching the water surge past the dam and discovering once again its rightful path towards the sea was a sight to behold.
We weren't just running a demonstration, we were creating a river.
How often have humans witnessed a river being reborn? Inch by inch, foot by foot, mile by mile, in an awesome demonstration of the force of nature, the Colorado River was reclaiming its corridor.
It's a fun.
So does that bring you back, Jill, to those times? And it's so exciting for me to see. I was not part of the pulse flow, but to see in that clip so many people are still with this effort today as part of Raise the River. And I think a lot of them have been in this festival appearing on camera earlier. So it's nice to see that continuity of work. And I think it's because it's so passionate and the story resounds so much with us all. Any moments in particular that stand out for you? You were there personally, about what it meant to you to be a part of this film and see all this come together?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure the moment when we all sort of unified around this coalition narrative and made this decision and sort of empowered at least the Redford Center to go out with this film and speak on behalf of all the folks who are working on this and had been working on this and the communities that depend on the river. And it was just a really, it was a moment of trust, I would say, for us that felt like a really big honor. It still feels like a really big honor to be able to support this work. As you said, Lynn, these, Jennifer and Carlos and John and Francisco and Oswald and we've been doing this work for so many years together, and it does feel personal and it does feel familial in a way. And so I think to have a group that understands the opportunity and the power of storytelling, particularly storytelling through film, and gets behind that, I think for me that it feels like we've really been able to help. And I know that we don't always, when we make films with big impact goals and visions, we don't always get to stick around and see the results. It can get expensive for an artist to raise money to, spend years of their time trying to continue in a sort of activist role. And so to be able to do it in collaboration with a community like this is, I think, what's enabled us to be in it for so long, and for it to continue, evolving. And I know maybe you've already talked today about the vision for the Raise the River Coalition and the land, and to see it becoming something permanent, something that that it's sort of righting a wrong, if you will, is just it's really a gift, and it's such a great model and example. So I would say the whole experience has been pretty incredible. The moment that I think I had a deepening respect for the power of storytelling as part of this effort, though, came when we had engaged this PR firm, and some of their young staffers had gotten very excited about the idea of writing, getting some celebrity attention on the Pulse Flow. And they had written a script that had Will Ferrell and Robert Redford in it together. And they had done such a good job mimicking both of their voices and their kind of comedic and acting approaches, that we were successful in getting both of them to do this short piece. And at the time, I can't remember how this group came in, but someone had been in conversation with Keurig Green Mountain, the coffee roastery. They had a big water initiative at the time and really wanted their logo on this short celebrity focused piece. And I don't think that was the only reason, but long story short, that was a catalyst to getting them to make a $5 million gift to the campaign. And my memory is that the goal, the commitment that the coalition had to put into the Minute 319 work was a $10 million commitment. And so it was a really significant piece, both financially and also in terms of encouragement, I think, for all of us to keep going. And so that I will always carry with me. So many thoughts about it now, but yes, that was a moment where I really started to understand the power of this tool.
Yeah. And as you mentioned earlier, things changed. The results of the Pulse Flow adjusted how we see restoration work being most successfully carried out in the Delta. We've also had a lot of impacts of climate change that have been much more severe than I think we anticipated 10 years ago, and its impact on the river and the usage of the water, which is why we're working so closely with the agricultural community. So as stories evolve, what do you see, you know, and we are, you know, about to embark on working with both governments on the renegotiation of a minute. So as a storyteller, what would you recommend? How would you recommend we proceed in the future with this project and the importance in order to continue the momentum that's been achieved so far?
Yeah, well, I think you and Island have talked a little bit about this, but the more I learn about the vision for the future, and the more I continue to hear and experience, because the last time I was there was actually probably 4 or 5 years ago now, but even then, seeing the opportunity for nature access that's been created for the communities and the schools and all of the wildlife and all of the you know, water life, and just to see what has reemerged, I think there's so much storytelling we could do there, and I do think it's time for a follow-up film. Maybe not a feature documentary, but I certainly think that this is a story of hope. This is a story of success and a story of community, and I just don't think we have enough of those in the world, and this one has the most incredible visuals and committed people, as we've said, and would love to think with the group about, you know, what kind of a film would be the most supportive to this next stage of the effort.
Well, the whole theme of this festival, and thank you so much for closing us out today, is The River Unites Us. And I think that has been something that we've seen with starting with Watershed and the coming together, and certainly all the community clips that we've been able to witness today during this online festival. Any last comments, Jill? And we'll turn it back over to Aida.
Oh my gosh, well, just a really big note of gratitude to everybody that you've already heard from today, and to all the people that have stayed with this effort and that have created this example for all of us, and this new habitat, this new life. And yeah, I believe that sort of unifying force that is here. I feel a part of it. I feel really grateful to be a part of it still. So yeah, just thanks everyone for creating so much hope. Yeah.
Bueno, thank you very much, Jill, for this wonderful presentation. We love Watershed, we love renewal. So thank you for those beautiful images and for bringing us back to the pulse flow. It was so exciting to see Jennifer and Oswald and many of the folks that were there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
For the icing on the cake, en español, la cereza del pastel of this festival. And I know Redford Center contributed a lot for this festival to happen. So thank you so much. I'm going to go back to Spanish just to close. Con esto damos por concluido nuestro festival virtual. Nuestro festival no se termina aún, todavía tenemos un evento más del 9 al 12 de noviembre. Estaremos en el Festival Vive San Luis, que antes se llamaba Festival Tierra Sonora. Vamos a tener un stand, vamos a estar regalando plantas nativas, vamos a estar haciendo un montón de cosas, una exposición fotográfica y demás. Pero bueno, agradezco muchísimo de verdad el tiempo que le han dedicado esta mañana. Agradezco en primer lugar a nuestros panelistas, a todos y cada uno de ellos por compartirnos su tiempo y su pasión por este proyecto. Agradezco muy especialmente a todos los asistentes, insisto, por su paciencia y por compartir con nosotros. Y esperamos que este seminario haya sido de su agrado. Y finalmente quiero agradecer de manera muy, muy especial a todos mis compañeros de la Alianza Revive el Río Colorado, quienes han trabajado muy intensamente para lograr este festival. Y como les dije al inicio, preparamos con mucho cariño para todos ustedes. En las próximas semanas estaremos compartiendo fragmentos de este festival en nuestras redes sociales. Y también estaremos regalando kits de la Alianza que incluyen las gorras, mochilas, botellas de agua y las artesanías de la comunidad indígena Cucapá con certificado de autenticidad. Así que por favor, háganlo ahorita, síganos en Facebook, en Instagram. Vamos a estar haciendo dinámicas para que nuestras redes crezcan aún más y podamos tener la oportunidad de llegar a mucha más gente. Así que sin más, nuevamente agradezco muchísimo a todos y espero verlos en la próxima edición de este festival que tendremos, espero, el próximo año con muchas actividades presenciales en línea. Muchísimas gracias a todos mis compañeros detrás de cámaras, Quetzali, Ceci, Albert, Gaby, todos aquellos que nos apoyaron muchísimo para que este webinar funcionara. Y muchas gracias. Los dejo. Hasta luego.